My name is Alex Nascimento. I teach blockchain business applications and security tokens at UCLA. I'm going to do a shameless plug here. We have a seminar coming up at UCLA, which is open to all of you guys. You don't need to be a UCLA student to sign up. It's on May 3rd and 4th. We're bringing a lot of experts. We got a huge amount of support from the organizers of this beautiful conference. Alan and Joseph, like massive support. You can Google it, you're easily to find, but if you want a short link is bit.ly, bit.ly/UCLA STO. Sign up for it, you're gonna meet some great experts. But enough of my shameless plug. I'm gonna here introduce my friends, Jason and Stephen, who are going to talk about what they do, because they're much better at doing this than I would ever do. Gentlemen, want to introduce yourselves?
Sure. My name's Jason Barkeloo. I'm the founder of Nobella Tech, which is an open science company.
All right. And I'm Stephen E. Schmitt. I'm actually a publisher, and I'm looking actually for great stories here. So I'll talk a little bit more about that too. So if you're into blockchain or cryptocurrency, I'm looking for some great stories to be in a book with Alan and Joseph. So we'll talk more about that.
All right. So, you know, I know it's the end of the day, and we're all looking for like the happy hour moment. But let's try to keep this engaged. If you guys want to interrupt, raise your hand. I see some of my students here. Vasily is here. Vasily is going to ask a question, or else he's not going to get a good grade. And you know, feel free to raise your hand, and we'll keep this as interactive as possible. So let's start with a little bit about a generic question. Like, how do you guys see what you're doing impacting education? Because as much as I travel and as much as I talk to people around the world, it's still like we're still a very small group. And when I go out and I tell to C-level executives, I talk about blockchain, and they looked at me like, what are you talking about? Like, are we going to fly to the moon? And I'm like, no, it's the technology behind Bitcoin. They're like, oh, scam. So like, give us your 2 cents on what you think we need to overcome this gap of education.
Well, for me, after my Army career, I actually became an inner city science teacher for 5 years and also adjunct at a couple universities. And two or three primary things that came to my mind. One was the importance of content and content that was personalized to the needs of each individual learner, and the ability to deliver that content. So content in of itself isn't sufficient. You got to have the ability to deliver it. So I think that one of the things that the chain can really enable us to do today is to not only curate the content, but also prescriptively deliver that content to the individual needs of the learner on the chain.
Okay, so like, how do we create digestible content, right? Because this stuff is pretty technical. It takes a while for you to learn it in and out. So how can we make it like more digestible for the average person? Is that where?
Yeah. Well, I think one of the really key points of this is crowdsourcing. And if you look at Scientific American, it's really a synthesis of journals that are published a month or two in advance. And so I think the advantage is at a crowdsourcing level is to allow the experts out there to synthesize it, break it down in a way that most people can digest it. And I think that becomes a tremendous educational tool. You don't expect a 21-year-old to jump into a virology course and understand everything that's there at a very high technical level. But if you have somebody that's able to break that information down into bite-sized, absorbable amounts of content, then I think that 21-year-old learner is able to make the next step toward understanding virology.
Fantastic. Stephen?
Yeah, same thing. I came here and I was telling a friend that I'm going to go be speaking at a cryptocurrency blockchain, and they said, whoa, what's that? And I have to say, I met some people out there that are geniuses. They're so smart, but when I ask what they do, I'm like, what did they just say? So what I'm doing as a publisher here is we're taking about 20 stories from some of the top companies out there and writing about blockchain and cryptocurrency or what you're up to and making it simple. So somebody like a 21-year-old could read it and say, wow, I get this stuff. And what's so powerful about my Wake Up books, that's the name of my books, we have sold over 2 million books worldwide. And so when you have a book gets you up on stage. A book gets you out of the seats. And that's what I teach people. When you have a book, it gives you authority, and that's what authors all about. So if anybody out there wants to learn more, I'll share more about it. But we're just looking for your story and how did you get started? And we want to hear the bad stuff too, because I know there is a lot of tough barriers that everybody's going through. So we want to have good stories. And what's so cool about it is, say that 20 companies, they all have big databases. When the book goes out, it goes out to thousands of people worldwide. And so your message gets out in a huge way. And for example, if you guys probably heard the book called The Secret, well, it sold 28 million copies. So they have 15 authors, and everybody wrote a short story. So that's what we're doing with this Wake Up book with Joseph and Alan, is looking for other people that want to contribute to it and also get your message out in a big way. So that's what I think. I'm here to contribute my purpose and your purpose too in the publication world.
So Stephen, tell us about some of like the stories you think are interesting for people to learn, right? So obviously everyone that comes to these kinds of conferences already has a very good idea of what blockchain is, tokenization of assets, cryptocurrencies. If you guys don't know it, I highly recommend, taking my class. But, I assume you all know. So if that, and that's kind of like is that the audience who's going to read it?
Well, the audience are so many people are so interested in this topic. And I used to put on large conferences, and a very famous person, he was boyfriend now married to Oprah. He spoke at one of my conferences, Stedman. And he was sharing his story about he grew up in Compton in LA, and everybody was on the edge of their seats listening to that. Then he drew up a chalkboard and started talking about statistics, and I looked at everybody and they're sort of falling asleep. So the key is people think of that when you read a book, you want to write about blockchain and all that stuff. Like I ask people what they're doing and it's confusing. Well, people want to read about how you got started and make it simple. That's really the key. I have a daughter, and what I used to do is share things with her friends, when she was 6 or 7 years old, and if they got it, then everybody's going to get it. So again, people, especially reading a book, they want to hear the emotional ups and downs. And of course, you want to write about what your company's up to and how you do it. But when they read this chapter or even your whole book, a book is a lead generator for someone to pick up the phone to call you. A book is a lead generator for a new customer. So again, capture their interest, their imagination for them to want more of you. And then you could go into the esoteric start. You could, go deeper into it. So that's my opinion with a great book. A great book is about your life. How many people you've been in this industry? Has it been easy for everybody? Or has it been sort of hard sometimes, ups and downs, right? That's the kind of stuff we want to hear about it.
So maybe Jason is an entrepreneur. He could be in your book.
He can, because we all have great stories. And, I'm happen to be here with the cryptocurrency blockchain. I just did a book with all women, Awakened Women. I'm doing a book with all these doctors about neuroscience and how we're manifesting with Dr. Bruce Lipton. And so with this, yes, I'm looking for the blockchain cryptocurrency. But yes, he has a great story. You said you're already going to be in the book. You have a great story. And I guarantee if you're sitting here, you probably have a great story too.
So Jason, why don't you tell us your story being an entrepreneur?
There you go.
And how did you get educated in this space? Because a lot of the entrepreneurs here, and I guess like myself, you're self-educated, right? Until we push to have like a course offering at a university, you had to learn by yourself. So how did you get to learn around the space? What were the hiccups of getting to know the space and launching a startup in the space?
Well, for me, it's all about learning. First and foremost, you've got to understand the content, right? And then second of all, you got to understand, is there a market there that actually can have a problem that you can solve? So you don't want to be a solution looking for a problem. I think that's something that this space in particular really needs to focus on, is actually identifying a problem and then going about developing a solution for that problem. I think as an early entrepreneur, I kind of missed that. I found something I thought was really fascinating, and I thought, okay, I'm going to run forward and do that. And I never really thought about the market dynamics that really drive a company to be sustainable.
Okay. And then you just went out and you started digging through materials, YouTube videos. Like, how did you kind of wrap your head around the concept?
Right. Well, when I started as an entrepreneur, we didn't have iPhones, and we were living in pagers. I don't. Thank you for the laugh. I'm not the only one that remember pagers. So I go back to content, and the delivery of content was very different. It was more paper driven and book driven then. For me as an entrepreneur today, if I hadn't had my military experience, I think I would have been a very different entrepreneur. I approach things from a rehearsal perspective, understanding the criticality of telling a story. I even told my son, he's at Ohio State, and I told him, you want to be an entrepreneur, take a storytelling course. It'd be the most important course you can take to raise money.
So when you're talking about raising money, that's a really interesting point here as we talk about education, right? Most scientists and researchers today, if they are at a university level, they have a really big challenge on spending not only their resources, but actually gaining funding from an educational point of view, right? That they need to get someone that's going to fund their research. How do you think that, like, either your company or another blockchain company, like we're talking about my friend John Wise from Low Key Coin, how do you see the industry evolving and facilitating researchers and people that are thinking into solutions that are going to change the world get fundraising?
Yeah, I'm really excited about this. One of the great things that the blockchain is going to enable us to do is to deliver grant funding to researchers in which we can take a really long and arduous and expensive process of doing a request for proposals, getting those proposals reviewed and scored, and then releasing funds to the researchers. It's an incredibly difficult and arduous process. And by moving that to the blockchain, you're able to absolutely change at a fundamental level the way grants are awarded and managed. And I think then you add a cryptocurrency component to that, and you have a really little cauldron of opportunity.
Interesting.
Now, we actually filed a patent for that. So those of you here that are anti-patent, to get funding, it's often very important with professional investors that you have some intellectual property behind it. Doesn't mean you've got to enforce it, but at the same time, it validates, from a publication perspective, it validates that you actually have a very good idea and that there's a solution there.
Interesting. And is that what you guys facilitate at Nobella? Like how to put these components together and search for the funds that are available out there through grants?
Yeah, we're more like the GitHub for scientists, except they earn crypto for collaborating. And so we provide them an entire scientific ecosystem that literally starts with intellectual properties that we bring to them. So there's $4 trillion worth of dormant intellectual property around the world just sitting there not doing anything. So we look at it kind of like the Lyft or Airbnb of IP. So we bring in the tired and depressed IP, and we then open that up to the researchers around the world. But that's not enough. Then we bring in requests for proposals. So the Gates Foundation or the Wellcome Trust, any of these organizations that offer grants, we can host those for them for free on the platform for those researchers for free. This is all free. And now that researcher can come in, apply for that grant, and then the other researchers in the community, then they vote on which of those proposals should be funded. So you're offboarding the arduous and expensive task of reviewing RFPs from the grantor to now the community of experts that are out there who really want to do it. And then you can provide them free lab equipment. So you have these vendors around the world that have equipment that's 5 years old sitting in a warehouse. They donate it, they get a tax deduction for it, and there's a researcher in Nigeria that benefits from that. And then you provide them a manuscript development tool. We have a partner with Dudoc, and this is like Google Documents on multiple steroids, and so those researchers get free access to that. And then they can drop that manuscript on a preprint server that can go out to an open access publisher. So by providing the researchers that entire ecosystem from start to finish, and then giving them cryptocurrency for that collaboration to that Angolan scientist, that is a huge thing for that person. It may not be big for a Western scientist, but for the underserved in Asia, Africa, and Latin America, having a system of free tools and services for them that they're rewarded in crypto it's a game changer for them.
And is that also impacting like social science research and STEM research? Like, how do you see that evolving?
Sure, and it ties into the education. One of the problems that we have today in the educational field is that the delivery of the content to the student lags significantly the breakthroughs. So CRISPR-Cas9, for example, the textbooks that are coming out now actually talk about it, but that technology is 3 years old. And completely disruptive to the biotech space. So the nice thing about having this content curated in a real-time way for STEM and social sciences is that you now generate educational content in a real-time, deliverable way. So now that high school biology teacher can say, hey, go out to Nobelo.tech and take a look at this particular CRISPR-Cas9 technology, and somebody in the world has synthesized all of that research down into a way that can be absorbed by that student, and all in a crowdsourced way.
And you're working with universities on that?
Right, well, we get intellectual properties from those universities, and then of course the researchers and the postdocs and the PhD candidates and the masters, those folks are all within that platform, obviously collaborating for free, and they're the ones that are developing and curating that content. So you have that student opportunity to have that interaction directly with those researchers as they do that work.
And so do you see that? As
Yeah.
like
Well, you know, what you're talking about too is like anybody out here too, if you have a great concept, there's always money. There really is. And you could crowdfund it, or the key is we have to have clear intentions of what we're doing and explain it in a simple way. So for me, I always teach by experience. And I've always been an entrepreneur, and when I have a good concept, the people will show up in your life. The money will show up in your life. But the key is that you need to run your business. You need to be the architect of your business and your own life too. So that's really the key is once you see that, and even if you're sitting here, maybe you're manifesting him now to help you create your business in a real way. And I just want to encourage everybody out there that all the resources always there for us. And do you believe it? If you believe it, you're going to create it. And, you know, that's why I love neuroscience. You know, we're all walking around with our own beliefs, right? Whatever that belief is, we're manifesting in this holographic world that we're living in, or this reality that we're living in. So the key is really believe in what you're doing. And that's what I do in all industries is I wrote my first book when I was 21 years old. And I was sleeping, and it came through a dream. A loud voice yelled, write a book. And I wrote a book called Wake Up. And I thought I was going to sell 1 million copies way back at age 21. But what happened was it really brought a lot of success to my business. And then I created a multi-million-dollar business. And the book was a really great vehicle because I was a young guy with a book. It gave me credibility. And so that's why I just want to encourage anybody out there. All of the dreams will come true for you in this lifetime if you believe it. You need to believe in yourself. Once you believe in yourself, then you'll attract those right people in your life to help you with everything. And you talk about crowdfunding too. When I do these books, say we have 20 people, right? Well, I get everybody getting to know the 20 people. I do Zoom calls or Skype calls where they get to know each other. And that alone, you start, if you want to raise a billion-dollar company, $1 million company, surround yourself with people that are doing it. And so when I do these wake-up books, in this book we're talking about now, you get to know the other authors. You get to hopefully do business with the other authors. And then when the book goes out, it goes out worldwide, and your story gets out too. And then when you meet somebody at a Starbucks or you meet somebody at a network, they say, what do? You can say, well, I'm doing this, and also I'm in a best-selling book. And I tell people, give a book away. When I meet people, I have a little pocketbook that when they ask for a business card, says how I sold millions of books. I give this out. And so I give it out for free. But eventually, I gave one to you, and he says,
I got one.
I'm writing a book. So me giving this out, now he's going to probably become one of my clients. And that's why I teach people a book is a lead generator for your business. And most people that write a book, guess what? They write a book, and they think it's going to go out and sell millions of copies. It usually doesn't. I tell people that even if you sold 5,000 copies of your book, and out of 5,000 people read your book, let's just say 500 people gave you an extra $1,000 for your business. That's a $500,000 business that you have because you gave a book out or someone bought the book. So that's why I really teach it. I teach by experience. And that's why I'm so honored to be in this industry. I've been investing money, and I like this industry, and I really feel that I could be a huge purpose to this industry to get a book out and hit it on the bestseller list and get more credibility for this whole blockchain and also cryptocurrency space.
And
So-
do you think we need more books in the space?
Well, yeah, I think,
when I was researching for books for my class, I found that there were very little,
yeah,
or very few,
yeah,
very few books available. There are some out there if you go on Amazon, especially on security tokens. I was like, there's nothing on security
Yeah,
tokens.
well.
I better write a book. UCLA requires a book. But do you feel that, like, as a professional of the publishing industry, we're lacking more material, or is it because the industry advances so fast that books become obsolete?
So self-help books never die, and again, they have a shelf life that it can last.
But you're not going to
forever.
write a self-help book
No.
for blockchain, right?
Well,
It was like, help yourself on the blockchain.
Well, help yourself to create abundance. So maybe you twist it with, words in a sense that, hey, blockchain can bring you abundance and prosperity. So I think absolutely that if you're a professional, writing a book could be the best move ever. However, I meet so many people that wrote a book, and I talk, and they say, well, I got a book. And what happens, they're a little embarrassed because they wrote a book, and guess what? They didn't do any marketing, so the book never got out. And so the key is there's systems for everything. Do you know that anybody in here, I can make a New York Times bestseller for anybody in here, even if your book sucked? It really, and I don't do that. But again, New York Times bestsellers and Amazon bestsellers is because people know how to make it a New York or Amazon bestseller. I could take very few copies and make it a New York Times bestseller. But what's that going to do? It's going to get you on CNN. It's going to get you maybe an Ellen, and you talk about your business. What are you really doing? So the book was a lead generator to get out there. So once you know how to use a book as a tool for your business, then you prosper. Most people, they write a book, and that's about it. They don't run a book as a business.
There's already an analog to this, right? We went through it with the ICO boom with white papers. The people that wrote really good stories and embodied it into a white paper, not even a business plan, were attracting stupid amounts of stupid capital.
Yeah.
And so, this is a phenomenal example of that.
Yeah, and what you said, you told your son the storytelling, right? And that's it. You want a story, and you want your story of how you got started. People really are interested in how you got started, and you're human, and you haven't been successful all your life, that you lived in your car, you did this, and you barely made it, and then you came up. That's what people really want to hear. And then once you get them as a relationship, you could go a little bit deeper into what you do and educate somebody. Just like you are a teacher, you don't just throw your students the first day in class everything. You sort of have to have layers. And that's what you want to do when you write a book or you write a story in one of my books. Your story is the same story when you're up on stage. And it's a story that's going to capture someone's attention for them to be a client for you. And that's, Tim Draper, he's a perfect example. He's not selling books, he's giving his book out for free. And, last time he was here, he gave out 1,000 books for free. And so again, his book got him on all the talk shows. All successful people, the book is a lead generator to get them for PR. It's a PR piece for free. How much does it cost to go and get publications in these big magazines? If you write a book, you may be written in LA Times or New York Times paper for free, right? That would cost a lot of money for a company. So a book opens that door for your company to get on stage,
So we need some of the entrepreneurs here in the room to write a book about their story and how they learned about blockchain and how they're utilizing blockchain to change the world.
That's awesome. Ooh, yeah, and that's it. Yeah. yeah. So, yes. Oh, there you go. Yeah.
Well, Stephen, if you would write a book, and you're in social sciences and research, what would you say that book would?
Stephen or Jace?
Jason. Sorry, Jason. Stephen already knows what he writes about.
Can you ask the question again?
Sure. If you would write a book, because I know your company is about like research and developing IP and putting that in an environment where you compensate people or at least incentivize them via crypto to continue the research. Correct? Am I correct?
Right.
Do you think that we need more publications for that? Is that like a topic that's not clear for most people that are in the space? How could we educate people about that opportunity?
This is something that we've given a lot of time and thought to, which is the generation of content. Stephen takes content and memorializes it into a capsule, and then you digest the capsule. But the actual assimilation of information today actually doesn't occur in these large capsules. They occur in small bits. And so what we've discovered is that if you look at the way social media works today, the people that are followed are people that generate content and tell a story in very concise, small bits. And what you have to do is be able to harness those leaders of content development and get those leaders in a crowdsourced way to influence the others by the distribution of that content. And so I think that at the end of the day, the question here is that it's all about the content, the curation of the content, and the distribution of the content. And the scientific community is overwhelmed with content. It is completely inundated. There is no way to keep up with the amount of research that comes out on a daily basis. We think the blockchain space moves fast. The scientific world is at lightning speed compared to the blockchain space, and it's almost impossible to keep up. And so they've turned more to these very small bits of information where the title carries so much power that then is what sends the signal to the researcher that he or she should engage in reading more in depth.
Yeah.
It's really changed the assimilation of information dramatically.
Interesting. And is there a specific area regarding blockchain that you feel we need more or less content? Well, obviously more, right? Because we're trying to educate people on a mass scale.
Right. And there's two things that I think, to your question here, Alex, is two things. One is the blockchain space has developed a fairly pre-.com type of reputation. There's been a lot of knuckleheads running around out there selling snake oil. And so we have to overcome that. And so you need content that goes out to the world that's serious content, that really adds a level of professionalism to this space. So I think that's the first thing. So you need professional content. I think the second thing is that we need to really incubate ideas that there are tremendous opportunities in the blockchain space, just tons of them. And I think that we could really incentivize entrepreneurs to tell their story, to really incubate more ideas that could go into publication. Like, when I told a venture capitalist that we were moving grants to the blockchain, I was completely blown away. I never, ever would have thought or imagined doing something like that, or managing intellectual property provenance on a blockchain. And so I would have only come up with that if I I wouldn't have come up with that if I hadn't read real good content about that area. So I think the second thing is we need really good authors to stimulate more authorship.
Nice.
Interesting.
Yeah, and I think that's great too, because there's a couple types of books, like academic books, right? And I have to admit, academic books are pretty boring. And so a lot of times people think, especially like someone like you're very successful at what you do. A lot of times, like Steve Jobs, like when you read his book, the reason you wanted to read his book is because you wanted to know about his life, and that's what as an author to become more successful. And that's why I see a lot of times if you gave me a book or some education on blockchain, if I read it and I read the first paragraph and I'm just so confused, that's where it gets really hard. And that's why I see a lot of people out here too, you can't really explain what you do. And things are easy. I went actually to UCLA. And
Go Bruins.
yeah,
Woo.
and I remember I was studying physiology, but we had this teacher that he was so friggin' smart, and like we're all getting D's in the class, and it's like this guy is like so smart that he's trying to prove that he's so smart. And then I had another teacher that he was like a cool guy like you. He got up and said, "This is how things work," and he showed us, and that's where like we all just like really loved learning. And I think that if whatever you're writing about in this field, make it simple, make it easy, and get the message across. Again, tell a great story. Once you capture someone's attention, then you could give them more and more. But overwhelming somebody is the worst thing somebody could do. And we all read books where we started reading the first couple pages, and hopefully we put it down, or we read the whole book and we wish we would have put it down. And the key is you want to grab someone's attention, and you want to keep their attention. And what I love about books nowadays too, I'm not really a book guy anymore. I'm an audio guy. So we do audio, ebooks, and paperback books too. So we do all three forms of learning. And that's what you need to think about too. You have to have ways for each person to learn what you're teaching.
That's
yeah.
very true. Like
Yeah.
we see it at UCLA, this transition into people learning a lot more through multimedia channels.
Yeah.
Like some people are good readers and they like to read a lot. Some people like to watch YouTube videos.
Yes.
Some people like to go to lectures. Some people like to listen to audiobooks. Some people like to read articles. Some people like case studies and discussions. So a mix of that is very interesting.
Yes.
And a segue to that, as we have a good amount of entrepreneurs here in the room that might want to join your book.
No, thanks.
Give us some like guidelines. What are like? Are you looking for like startup stories?
Yeah.
Are you looking for people that made $1 gazillion doing an ICO?
Yes.
And when are we going to be able to read the book?
Yeah, we're gonna have some stories with very successful people, but also I'm really looking for stories that someone with enthusiasm, and also I'm really looking for people that really have a balanced business, because I do charge to be in this book. It's not free. I don't know if anybody ever put on a free conference or something. If you have people come in free, they usually don't do anything. And so I do charge. This book, it was $5,000 per person, but I charge $2,000. So if you can't figure out how to make $2,000, you're probably not ready to get your business out yet. So because I put you in a group of 20 people, and even in that group, you should meet other people that you do business with. So even meeting the other 20 people, you should do, sometimes I would say literally hundreds of thousands of dollars in business. And I have one author that came in a book with, it was Brian Tracy. And he came in a book with him, and they still do business. So he's made hundreds of thousands of dollars. I'm doing a book right now with all these neuroscience doctors, and they're all networking, and they're all putting on their conferences. So even in the book itself, there's a lot of masterminding going to happen, and then the book is going to go out worldwide, and it's going to be guarantee a bestseller. And I guarantee all books are bestsellers. So,
all right.
Yeah, so.
And when can we get the book?
Well, I say the book's going to probably be out. Right now I'm doing marketing. Probably 6 months or less we'll have the book out, and I'll give more guidelines once we get more stories in. And then I'll give guidelines. And it's a great process, too, of people writing these short chapters, because you guys may want to do your own book, too. But this is a great process to go through that, do this book, and then if you do write your own book, you're going to know more about how to make a bestseller, how to network, how to get it out into social media. And that's what I am. I love marketing. And one person market, or you have 30 people market. I go for 30 people because we all have databases that's going to go out in a bigger way. So that's what I teach, is marketing and how to make money with a book. A book is a cash flow system for your business. All you guys out there that don't have a book, you're leaving money on the table. You should learn how to use a book for a separate cash flow system for your business.
One of the things that just rang my doorbell on that discussion is that in the scientific community, many people have heard this publish or perish moniker. And publication is so critical to the scientific community for the distribution of content that as I was thinking about this, I thought, my goodness, you got 10 million of the most highly educated people in the world collaborating. They're going to generate a lot of content. How much of that content is going to go into the form of books or journals?
Yes.
And I hadn't thought about that, but there's a nice opportunity.
Yes, absolutely.
Do you think about utilizing that to bring on more scientists to your platform? Because from just basic internet marketing, right? You become like a chicken and egg problem. You need scientists to have IP, to have people that would buy that IP, right? And then the circle goes around. Do you foresee that like creating content and creating books and maybe like pushing through that venue would be a good way of spreading the word around your platform?
Right. Well, from a vision perspective, when you crowdsource the most highly educated people on the planet, all kinds of really interesting revenue streams emerge, but also very interesting models that aren't necessarily revenue generating things can come out. So for example, you can launch a university, right? Because you've got the faculty. They're all right there. And so now you've given those folks the opportunity to not only come in and collaborate, gain cryptocurrency for that collaboration, develop content, distribute that content, but now they can build entire educational systems in which they can participate in. So the idea of moving content, at the end of the day, it's all about content. Nobody wants to come into a platform where there's no content or interaction. So it's really critical on my platform that we curate content and we stimulate the interactions. So bringing in that intellectual property is the start. If we don't have something in which those scientists can rally around, hey, we have to work even harder to get them to collaborate and interact. So that's why we go out and spend a tremendous amount of time and resources bringing in that intellectual property and then providing it for free to those researchers out there. And then the rest of the platform of the ecosystem falls into place.
Interesting, very interesting. And as we get to the last 5 minutes of this panel, I'd like to open it up to the floor. Maybe someone might have a question. Gentleman over there, it's going to ask a question. All right, fantastic. Please tell us your name, the company you're behind, so you can have a little bit of a promo and the question.
Hey, thanks everybody. Oh, this is really loud. My name's Chris Groshong. I'm out of San Diego. I run a company called Coinstructive that was a consulting practice that turned into continuing education for professionals. So it goes along a lot with the theme of this talk. And you mentioned more professionalism in this industry. What are some of the things that you think are going to be most critical to the mass adoption on the professional level? Because I see that is an opportunity to really help drive it from a different perspective. A lot of people are talking about what it means to mass adoption from an end user perspective. as at the lowest level, but I think there's something really important about talking to the people who are providing services at a professional level.
Yeah, I'll take first and then we can all go along. I would say that one, you have to have services that are easy, right? So like the LegalZooms of the world, like it's an easy service for you to onboard and get legal services. Standardization across blockchain protocols, it's a must, right? Or else you're kind of like, I'm buying an apple and this guy's buying a banana and nobody's here is buying anything that matches. As well as you're going to see a lot of companies getting their assets tokenized. And as soon as they get their assets tokenized, they're going to start understanding how the technology behind work. But I think that if it would be a low-hanging fruit, I'll start educating the guys at the top of companies so that they can just turn on the light. Because tell me if you don't feel this way, right? The first time you came across blockchain and you really understood what it was, you were like, uh-huh. And then a light switch turned on into your head. And you're like, wow, this could change the world.
Right.
And then from there, you started like flipping into whatever you are doing, whatever your company is doing, and how blockchain could take that forward. So I think that's kind of like the tipping point we're still trying to do.
Yeah, for me, it's use cases. This is a space that is in desperate need of use cases.
That ties back to
Agreed,
your thoughts or your statements about experiential learning, right?
Yes, exactly. And to that, as an entrepreneur, I feel like Gumby. I'm pulled in 50,000 different directions. And one of the things that's extremely difficult is to write anything of length. It's very difficult. But it's really critical that my use case gets out to the world to stimulate other people and bring some level of professionalism to the space. So that's why a partnership with a publisher and an editor can be really important if you can get somebody to assist on the writing of that story, even if it's you just dictate it, which is what I'm actually in the process of doing. I'm dictating it into a recorder, and I've got a ghost author who throws it all the rest together. So I think that that's what we've got to do for our entrepreneurial community is help them be able to tell their story because they're pulled in so many different directions.
Beautiful, and I agree with that too, and that's what I'm here to help this industry get their story out and make it simple and have a book as a credibility tool for them. So I agree with that.
Great, thank you.
All right, we got time for one more question.
Right. Hey,
yeah, we can squeeze in two. Like, why don't you guys ask the? Whoa, we got three.
Okay,
wow, we're getting popular here.
Really appreciate the discussion.
Sure. All
My
right,
name's Steve Jordan. Do you think there's room for a fiction book in crypto to help spark adoption?
And that would be fun, yeah. If you did it right, it would actually be a great book. I actually have this book, Awaken Women, I'm doing, and a woman asked me that. She said, could I write my story as a fictional story? And I said, I think that would be fun. Because again, you want to engage your readers.
Right.
And it's almost like a children's book, right? If I remember one time I wanted to learn about a subject, and I met a professor, and he goes, well, go down and pick up a book for kids on that, and start there, and then you'll gain. So I think a fictional book would be fun and interesting and use imagination. So yes, do one. I'll help you.
Go Bruins.
Go Bruins.
And follow.
Did you say go Buckeyes? I'm sure that's what I heard.
We do have more national championships, right?
100 and plus. Yeah.
S the Billionaire on Instagram, by the way. Go follow him. That's me. I'm building a Instagram, and I would like to do a book, and I was being serious about the feminism part on a man's perspective and how it's destroying the United States culture and how it's separating the sexes versus the sort of quote-unquote equality, because I believe it's more important to be in unity versus equality, because I believe equality is a sort of illusion versus unity where it's actually we're genuinely uniting people. So as a first-time author, what do you recommend to slowly bring that information? Because you explained about don't make it too complex, make it engaging, tell your story. How would you go about it to bring such a hot topic?
Well, first off, your first book, I definitely write 104 to 144 pages, something that's going to capture someone's attention. and with a great title too. So what we would do is sit down and create a roadmap for you and come up with the chapters, and then just write a kick-ass book that people are going to get it, and your message is going to be your story. And so yeah, so we would have to have more than 53 seconds, but that's what I do with people is make sure once we do a book, it's your content, but we could even dictate it like he was saying, you could speak it and we could write it for you. So there's all different ways. So I would love to have a conversation with you more in depth.
Sure. Are you available after offstage?
We could talk a little bit, and I'm here in Laguna Beach, California, so I think you're probably in LA, right?
Yes, born and raised.
So, yeah, we could have a conversation, or we could talk a little bit after this. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
All right,
Yeah.
awesome. Last question.
Yeah.
Because
Hey,
we're going to
last
get
question,
kicked
I'll
out
keep
of
it
the...
short. It's kind of more of a commentary. I'm new to the blockchain, but in a short period of time, I seem to have had a big impact because I'm speaking about an economic message that turned out accidentally to be an invitation for people to be curious about the blockchain. I think everybody in this room is actually dependent on that solution, right? About adoption. That's what it's going to take. You're not really going to get people to adopt without them being curious. You got to grab their attention,
Sure.
which is basically what you're saying. So I stumbled onto a way to do that, and I think it's an additional, I think when you talk about a use case situation, that makes it enabled, that people want to use that, it's because it's coming from purpose, right? I think there's another aspect of purpose which has to do with us as people. Just as evolution. Like we invented money, we put it down, we all talk about how we hate it and we love this blockchain thing, but money was invented for this incredible purpose to trade value. I mean, before, how would you do that? If I lent you my cows, right?
Mm-hmm.
We went from this society to this society, and now we're in a place where we can actually grow all these value systems together. So that's a question that I ended up framing for bringing awareness to impact investing, not to the blockchain. And how many people have noticed that impact investing in the blockchain just seems to be merging together? Because I certainly see that. I don't know about your perspective.
No, yeah,
Yeah.
great
Right?
comment.
I like it.
I'll have to cut off because
Yeah.
our team here is like buzzing, and we got to get out. But great comment. I appreciate that.
Yeah, great comment.
Thanks everyone for
Yeah.
joining.
Thank you, guys. Thank you.